Geologists use many strategies to learn more about Earth's history by observing rocks. One thing they use is called the Law of Superposition. That basically says that when you have a bunch of layers of rock that are undisturbed, haven't been bothered, the layer on the bottom is the oldest and the layer on the top is the youngest. Looking at this cookie in a jar, the person who made it had to have poured the flour in first because it is at the bottom. As a result, the flour has been in the jar the longest, and you could say it's the oldest. Similarly, the fudge had to have been put in last because it is on top, and therefore it has been in the jar the least amount of time and is the youngest. Looking at this outcrop of rock at Zion National Park, we see a bunch of really nice, clean, horizontal layers of rock. And so we can apply the law of superposition. The oldest rocks are on the bottom, and the youngest rocks are on top. That's shown in this model on the left. Layer G is the oldest, and layer A is the youngest. But a lot of the time, rocks are disturbed by something. So if you look on the right side of this image, you'll see that a river has cut down through all layers of rock that we see there, A all the way into G. That is actually similar to what has happened in the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River used to be much more powerful than it is today, and it actually cut down through all of that rock that we're looking at and made the Grand Canyon. So once this particular river were to go away, to stop flowing, it would be very possible that new sediment would build up all throughout the region. Maybe that sediment becomes a sedimentary rock. That would be layer H. And then maybe a slight change occurs and you have a different layer of sedimentary rock, layer I. Okay? If someone were to go study this outcrop, looking on the left side and the right, nothing would be too surprising. You have the oldest rock on the bottom and the youngest rock on top, and there's time represented the whole way. But if the person were to go and examine the rock in this center part of the model, then they would see that they have some very old rocks, layers F and G, right up against some very young rocks, layers H and I. So what's happening there is there's an unconformity. The weathering and erosion caused by the river created this unconformity, which has caused there to be a bunch of rock layers missing. Looking at location B and C, we see something similar. So for time 1, 2, and 3, different layers of rock accumulated. But then at time 4, something was different about the environment in location B that caused erosion and weathering to occur. It eroded layer 3 and prevented layer 4 from forming. Whatever that source of weathering and erosion was, it stopped. And then at time 5, layer 5 formed in both location B and C. But location B has an unconformity between layer 2 and 5, where those rock layers are missing. Quick fossil recap: organisms live, they die. If they get buried pretty quickly, they can become part of rock strata as fossils. And if the rock then is uplifted, weathered, eroded, something happens so that humans find it, it can be excavated and studied. Geologists particularly get excited about index fossils because index fossils help us to know right away the relative age of a rock. So in order to be an index fossil, the organism had to have lived over a large amount of land, be widespread. They also need to be abundant, so there needed to be a lot of them. And they needed to have lived for a pretty short amount of time. So we're going to look at these 4 different outcrops and take a look at the fossils found within them. Ammonites, this shell here, Ammonites are only found in outcrop 3 in the top layer. So they are short-lived. They're only in one layer, but they're not widespread or abundant because they're only found once in outcrop 3. Brachiopods, on the other hand, are found in all 4 outcrops across all 4 layers. So in this case, they are for sure widespread and abundant, but they are not short-lived because they showed up over a long period of time in the rock, showing up in 4 different layers. Trilobites are found in all 4 outcrops as well, but the difference is that they are only found in one layer. This means that they were short-lived. So they were widespread and abundant. They're in all 4 outcrops in different areas, but they did not live for a long time. That makes them an excellent index fossil. This image just shows the distribution of all 4 types of fossils at the same time. And again, key into the green trilobites. They're the ones that are widespread, abundant, and short-lived and make the best index fossil. One last thing for success on this worksheet. Remember that when the same fossils are found in rocks in 2 different places, it means that those 2 rocks, one, have to be about the same age. And if it happens to be an index fossil, then it means they're really relatively the same age, very close. Additionally, it means that those 2 areas were once connected somehow. Okay? Today, and over the last 200, 300, 400 years, we've had ways to move animals and plants around the planet with boats, and more recently trains and planes and automobiles, but that was not the case for most of Earth's history. So before humans were involved, it was very hard for an organism to cross over a large body of water. So the fact that we find, for example, that crocodile-looking organism, fossils of that, the Mesosaurus, on both South America and Africa, that means that at one point, those 2 continents, those land masses must have been connected. And that goes for each of the 5 examples that are shown in that key. One last example, the Glossopteris, this plant, it's actually found on 5 different land masses. So again, it means that at one point in the past, all of that land had to have been somehow connected so that the seeds for that plant could be dispersed. All right, so good luck on your worksheet for this week. Stop by office hours if you need any support, and have a great week.